What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Athlete Mentality Podcast. First time that we've ever actually had our studio somewhat made up. We're super excited about bringing these podcasts, not only just from Spotify and Apple podcasts, but to YouTube. So we got the studio set up. We got fancy schmancy lights, got our camera set up here. We threw some wallpaper on the wall, our little neon sign. We're stoked.
Yeah, super cool. This is actually wallpaper. I know we've talked about this before, but this wallpaper is like $600 from Wayfair. It's so incredible.
We got robbed. We got literally robbed.
Anyway, so we're so excited just to have a little bit more of like, now you guys can see us. If you're just listening to this, totally fine. If you're actually watching it, you can see our little studio. You should definitely tune in though. If you've been following along our podcast, you should tune into the YouTube just to see our studio because we're pretty proud of it.
Well, we're pretty happy about it. And it's still getting finished up a little bit.
Yeah.
Our book, which is coming out in about 2 months, which you'll hear more about here in the coming days.
Yeah.
We're going to basically get a fat blow up of the book cover behind us here too. So a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, but we're pretty proud of what we have here today.
Yeah, we sure are. And if you're watching too, I have been trying, ladies, I've been trying to do the slick back pony look. I can't tell if it looks like the slick back pony look or if it looks like greasy hair, but we're rolling with it today.
We're rocking with it.
Cool. We have a good little topic for you guys. We have not like rehearsed or done anything. So we're just going to
cuff it. And I feel some of our best conversations and podcasts and things like that typically come from just a few ideas of what we want to talk about. And then we just kind of rip it from there. And today we're going to talk about balance because, in the business world that we sit in and even in the fitness world, we're going to talk about a mixture of the two things where on both sides of the coin, it's like balance doesn't exist. People are like, oh, fuck balance. Balance isn't a thing. You can't get balance in your life. But from the life that we've created at the level of success that we've been able to get to at the infancy in our business careers.
And within our fitness journey too.
And within our fitness journey mainly too, which we're going to talk about mostly, we've found a pretty decent balance and we're going to share that with you guys today.
Yeah. And I think it kind of started to drive me nuts. Like at first I was like, yeah, balance doesn't exist. Like work hard, don't sleep. And it's like, okay, that is just such I think there's also like a toxic culture associated with it too, where it's like, either all work, no play, or it's like, if you do enjoy yourself and maybe you take a vacation or whatever, it's like, oh, you're not working hard enough. And we found ourselves kind of falling into that, I think, of just like not feeling like we're working hard enough sometimes or feeling like we should be doing more if we take some time away. But we now I feel like we found this good sense of balance.
We have. And to talk about what Audrey was saying, we still get the emotions of if we have a great week, we work hard Monday through Friday, like maybe we just do a little bit on Saturday, we still get the feelings and emotions like we should be doing more.
Yeah,
I need to be doing more. And just know that that's a normal feeling, whether that's inside your fitness journey, if you're just getting started, you're like, oh my God, I'm only training 4 days a week. I need to be training every day. I need to be running. I need to be doing something. You don't, right? It's for the health of you, your body. It's for the health of your mind to make sure you do have good periods of like hard work and then some time to take a day to yourself and actually relax a little bit.
Yeah. So we're going to be kind of diving into like why we believe balance does and can exist, and also how we practice balance within our own life and what that looks like, because I feel like it helps to kind of alleviate some of the pressure that maybe you put on yourself to be perfect in these different areas or to feel like you can't have balance. But I love the idea of having balance. Like it brings me a lot of peace. And I think balance looks different for everybody and it looks different in different seasons. Like our balance has changed over time as to like what we dedicate our time to, what we enjoy doing, like all of that has changed. And I think that's the beauty of it because you ultimately get to create your life. And so it's like, just because somebody else tells you balance can't exist doesn't mean that you can't find what balance looks like in your own life within health and fitness, within business, within your personal life and your relationships. So I kind of we'll talk about each of those pieces, I think. Let's start with our fitness journey and kind of how we've ended up finding balance over, gosh, how long have you been?
If we wanted to look at this strategically, I've been in my fitness journey seriously since I was like a freshman in college.
Yeah.
So that's coming up on a decade here of,
Jeez, that sounds
training.
cool.
Yeah. Like training, but like for the record, I would say all through college, I wasn't really consistent. Like I was in a fraternity and I was butt chugging beers. I was being an idiot, eating pizza and shit food from my campus meal plan for 4 years. But I did have somewhat of a health conscious focus when I was eating and stuff like that. But I wasn't really making great strides. I was like one of those people that was like, I was committed, but my actions with food and what I wanted to do within my life weren't fully there with my
It
fitness
wasn't
journey.
like aligned yet.
Yes.
Yeah. When you
And
said
yours was pretty similar, wasn't it?
like when you said a decade, I was picturing like, I've been around for a decade.
Been around for a decade.
Get so old. I definitely have had periods where I do feel like I've had balance. Like right now, I feel like I'm in this period of balance within my health and fitness journey. And then there's periods where I've definitely not had balance. Like we both competed before, and like you can't really have balance there. It requires a lot of diligence and being very strict with yourself. So like there's definitely been times where I've had more sacrifice, but it's been a good thing too, because when you do, like nobody can lie that if you do have more sacrificing and you do go all in on your goal, your tunnel vision, you're going to get there quicker. You're going to get to your goal quicker in most cases, unless you burn out and then you crash and burn. But in most cases, you'll get there quicker. So like, I think it's been really good to have those periods where like we do have more sacrificing and we do have more of the tunnel vision, because we kind of like make those strides, and then it's like a little bit of a maintenance kind of pausing, and then we make another stride. I mean, I've been working out now for 7 years, maybe, kind of like you, where it was like I wasn't super consistent necessarily. I definitely had balance then, if you want to call it that. 15 chugging beer. But I also, again, have had those periods of being stricter. And so now I feel like I've kind of combined the two and figured out like what that looks like for us. We live the same life. So let's kind of talk about how we find balance in our day-to-day within fitness.
Yeah. And before we get into the day-to-day where we are now, like, I feel like we still need to touch on a little bit more of the groundwork that leads up to getting to this point.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning for us, I would say, to get to a level that you're very comfortable with where you're at, like where we are right now, it's not like we have these huge goals. Like I'm trying to put on 15 pounds of muscle, or I'm trying to get down another 30 pounds right now. So the legwork that we had to put in to get to these points, there was a little bit of an unbalancing act within that. Not to say we were restricting ourselves from going out or doing certain things, but there's a limitation that you have to put on yourself, to where if you never really put much focus into your fitness journey before in this type of way, where you are maybe tracking your food for the first time, starting to be consistent about sleep, managing stress, getting enough water, getting enough fruits and vegetables in every day, it's going to feel like there's a little bit of unbalancing in the beginning, because you're kind of wiping your whole lifestyle and replacing it with a newer, different one. So in the beginning, that's resistance you're facing. That's going to feel like unbalancing. It's going to feel like, oh my God, all this is a chore. But that's the navigation of the route that you have to take in order to figure out what is balance for you within your journey. So I think I want to lay that groundwork down a little bit before we started to talk about what our balance within our lives looks like today.
Yeah, it's never been linear. Like even if you were to look at times where we were very strict or times where we were very laid back, it still was like, little curves along the way. And that's just life in general. But I would say, I think at first you're going to have more sacrificing, and then maybe you find balance again, and then maybe you have more sacrificing. But it all goes back to like your goals. Like, what are your goals right now? And Mason and I talk about this all the time. Like we find ourselves not spending as much time in the gym. We find ourselves maybe, prioritizing a call or something work related over going to the gym. Sometimes we prioritize travel over going to the gym. And so that's kind of where we're at now. But there was times, and even in the beginning of a relationship, when we were coming out of a competition prep, like we would prioritize going to the gym over a lot of different things, I would say. And I personally definitely was prioritizing like my steps and my macros. And
at the time when we first met each other, we were at the strictest we will ever be within our fitness journeys. Probably. For those of you, that don't have or have never done a competition prep, those of you that have, you understand it. But for most of you that have not, this is where you have to be the most diligent. This is where you have to say no to nights out. This is where you have to be pretty much 100% on your shit. 98% of the time. So there's more things you're gonna have to say no to. So when, like she was mentioning, when we first met each other back in 2020 in October, we had to be more diligent. We couldn't be as flexible with our eating out, and we had to get in lifts. We had to get cardio sessions in. We had to hit steps for the day. So there was a much more of an unbalanced time in our lives from what we're talking about now. But it's just a season. Like Audrey said, you're going to go in spirals. You're going to have like a couple good months. And then that 1 month where maybe you have 2 weddings and you're going to frickin' Vegas. I mean, and then that month's going to be like, fuck, I didn't really get anywhere. But if you kind of put in the groundwork to understand your journey from that linear perspective, like we were talking about earlier, where I was like, you find your balance on your journey in your own way. That's where like that spiral for, April, is like a stagnation line, but that's really good because for typically in the past, it might have went up and then you said, fuck April. And then
going all the way back
went all the way
down.
down. So it's never going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're never going to have perfection. You're going to have good weeks, you're going to have bad weeks, but it's about finding that balance within everything. So you don't just completely fall off the map.
Yeah. And when you do go from like being really, really on top of your shit within your own health and fitness journey, you're towards your goals, and then you start to like lay off the gas pedal a little bit, it might feel like you are going in the opposite direction of like, oh, well, now I'm not having balance because, you know, maybe I'm going out too much, or maybe I'm eating out too much. And so sometimes it's really hard to accept that like balance can exist. And because what often happens is when you're so good and then you like have a meal out, or let's say you go out drinking or whatever, it's really easy to just judge yourself for it. And it's really easy to want to go one way or the other, right? Because you're like, well, I screwed up. Like I might as well just kind of go back to old patterns, or I might as well fall back into that old like habits and things like that. And so I think it's just really important that you kind of like surrender in a sense, really figure out what it is that you want, figure out what brings you a lot of joy, and still allowing you to, I guess, reach whatever goals it is that are a priority for you right now. And so for us, again, right now, it's not really our body. Like our body is not our priority right now, but it had been for so long. And so we had already we spent the time tracking macros. We spent the time not missing workouts. Like we did that, but now we can have a little bit more flexibility within our health and fitness journey because we laid the framework, because we laid that solid foundation.
Yeah. And along with that too, like we said, we spent, you know, when I talked about, I've been doing this for a decade almost. Audrey, 7-ish or so, 8 years. We do what we do now, so we can cut that time frame for you down to just like 25% of that.
Yeah.
Right. So don't think that, oh my God, 7 years, 10 years, I'm going to figure out my balance within 10 years. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying here. We're saying that we didn't have coaches for the first couple of years of what we were doing. So we were just like blindfolded, throwing darts at a dartboard, hoping to God that what we were doing was going to get us results. We were going to feel good. A lot of the things that we tried, I know Audrey did keto. I tried keto. I did all kinds of crazy shit where it wasn't
so crazy to think of now.
when I would literally, I was in college, not to get too far off the beaten path here, but when I was a junior or senior in college, I would literally eat a bunch of shit at like food at night, but I would literally wake up in the morning and I would fast until my last class in the day, which was finished at 4 o'clock. And I would come home and I'd have my first meal, basically ravenous, starving.
What was the first meal?
I ate a lot of ground turkey, rice.
Like the 99 one?
I was eating like 80-20 or 85-15 before I knew like the leanness of the cut of meat you should have shouldn't be that fatty. But like I said, not to get too far off the beaten path here, but we just didn't know what we didn't know back then. Having the knowledge we know now and being able to work with people and show them what they need to know, like what's important, what's not important, what you should be putting emphasis on, where your energy should go to get the results you're looking for in just a minuscule amount of the time. It's going to allow you to build yourself into a perspective or a lifestyle that has that balance a lot quicker than us.
Yeah. So on the day-to-day within our health and fitness journey, we try and shoot for like maybe 4 lifts a week right now on a good week. Sometimes we hit 5, but typically about 4. And then when we travel, sometimes it's like 2 to 3 a week. Yeah. And we just train with proper, like all the proper techniques and the form and things like that, because we've been doing it for so long now. So we're getting more out of each training session, you know, like we know what to be doing and how to get the most out of our time. So we go anywhere from 2 to
No, I'm just sorry.
Why are you laughing at me?
I'm not. I'm just looking at you and I smiled. I wasn't trying to make you laugh.
I feel like we're so close.
Yeah, I know. We're laughing.
2 to 5 times a week we're training right now. And then from a nutrition perspective, like our meals pretty much look the same. Like we always have a leaner protein source on hand. We always have typically even eat more veg.
I've been eating a lot more veggies.
Yeah, that was his goal.
And one of my nutrition goals this year was to eat more vegetables, because I would typically just do like greens powder and I would throw spinach in my breakfast every morning. Like I had more vegetables than probably 90% of people, but like I'm 250 pounds. Yeah. I need at least 2 servings, if not more, of veggies a day. And I wasn't getting that.
No. So anyways, we need more veg. So we always try and have like a veg, and definitely we'll have like some fruit. So we just try and like eat healthier whole foods for the most part. But last night we threw in a pizza and we had a couple slices of pizza last night.
It was good.
It was great. And then gosh, like this last week, like we still enjoy our time out. We love going out to dinners. Like that's where that balance exists, right? Because if we told ourselves, hey, you can't go out to dinner, you can't have like maybe 1 or 2 cocktails, that's what we love doing.
Right.
Like that is what there's also a component to this that what like makes you feel good from a mental perspective too. What's going to allow you to continue to do what you're doing and allow you to continue to keep up with things in a healthy way. And for us, cutting out those dinners, cutting out like, maybe a couple drinks here and there, I don't really think that's healthy for us.
No.
Yeah.
And for us, like we've created balance within going out for dinners.
Yeah, even then.
And this is what we try to teach our clients as much as possible too. If you're going to go out to dinners, like it's going to happen like once or twice a week, you're going to meet with friends, coworkers, networking events, whatever the hell is going to come your way, there's going to be something that's going to pop up. So it's like for us, when we go out to dinners and stuff like that, we don't eat like pigs throughout the day or eat a bunch of calories throughout the day like we normally would. We'll still have some meals, but we'll cut back and lower the caloric intake. So we know like if I go out, I have 2 drinks, I have a dinner, I'm not going to be way over my calories for the day, but I'm going to fall right within a window where I know my body's going to respond very well to it. And it's not going to be like me just like blowing the day out of proportion.
Crazy. And because we also go out and we do this somewhat frequently, like at least on a weekly basis, I don't feel the need, and you don't either. We don't feel the need to go crazy. It's not the first time we've gone out to eat, we've gotten access to really good, tasty food. We expose ourselves to really good food and maybe food that we get when we go out quite a bit. And so before, when it was like, I hadn't had something really tasty from a restaurant in months in a competition prep, first time we went out, I was like, oh my God, appetizer, this meal, I want to try your meal, I want dessert, all these sugary cocktails. And it's like, because you're almost telling yourself, I don't know when the next time is that I'll be able to have this. But when we expose ourselves to that, we're able to have this like really healthy relationship with food. And again, when we go out, we still have those like basics of, okay, we're still going to get a leaner protein. Like we almost always order a chicken or a steak. That's pretty, and shrimp maybe for me sometimes, but a chicken or steak is typically what we get. And then there's like vegetables that come with that or whatever, is on their menu, obviously, but that's kind of how we found balance. And we don't even track our food intake anymore. We did that for 4 or 5 years. And we don't even have to, because we put in that legwork, right? We laid that foundation. We got the knowledge around how to track what our meals should look like, what our maintenance calories typically are. So now we can just do a little fine tuning by just eyeballing.
Exactly. And it's really that simple. Like I said, it might seem like it is impossible for you to achieve where we're at if you're just getting started. And I get that. So don't stress yourself too much. Like, oh my God, I can't feel like I'm finding balance right now. It's been 2 months and everything's relaxed, take a breath, right? The goal should be, let me just give it everything I got with a sustainable solution that I know can allow me to have dinners, allow me to eat the things I want to eat over the course of a year. If you really put in the work, you're going to find that balance. You're going to find what works for you. And you're going to be able to know, okay, am I in a season right now where I still want to lose 30 pounds? Right. That balance is going to be a little bit different than you being in the season of like, fuck yeah, I got my body. I know exactly how I look. I love what I'm seeing in the mirror. I don't have much of a drive to want to, lose more body fat or build more muscle because I'm content. I'm cool. And that's perfectly fine. Then you're going to be in a season where like, you can be more flexible, right? Even if you're more flexible, it's not like you're just going to start packing on weight because you built the skills, you built the lifestyle, you built the balance within your life to be able to manage that and not go completely overboard.
Yeah. And then on top of that, just to kind of wrap the health and fitness perspective up, we also have non-negotiable habits that we try and get in every day. And that is like the other foundation that we laid along the way throughout our fitness journey that we continue to keep up with, right? Because we know if we don't drink enough water, if we don't eat enough of the fruits and vegetables that make us feel energized, if we don't sleep enough, that is going to make a huge difference in the way that we feel, the way that we perform. Like getting on here and talking after we went out and, didn't have as much water, didn't eat the right foods, like it would be really difficult. We'd probably have a little bit of anxiety.
Oh yeah.
So we just know that we do this because it makes us feel really good and because we feel optimized and we're able to perform and give back to you guys, most importantly. And so I think it's just really important that within your balance, you still have those non-negotiables that are like, okay, it's not like I completely wash all my habits, or maybe they've changed a little bit, right? But they shouldn't just be, again, that all or nothing. Like there's that good, healthy dichotomy of both. The other little piece that we can kind of talk about too is like how we find balance within our personal lives, within our professional and personal life and our relationship. We don't have to dive too deep into that, but I think it'd be cool to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And some of the ways, especially from us, from a personal life and sort of, business life, because both of those, when I say business and personal, what we do for work, it's everything we do as entrepreneurs. It's not like we clock in at 9 a.m. on Monday morning and we're out by 5 p.m. and like everything turns off. Like There's always things going on. There's always things happening. So part of like our job of what we had to learn over the past close coming up on a year and a half, just being together and working together specifically is, how do we find that work-life balance within what we're doing to where we're not just full throttle on work 100% of the time, and then, really getting burnt out along with that, but making sure we're having a good mix of things. So things that we always like to do is we're always making sure we have trips scheduled, every couple of months at a minimum, to just kind of step out, even if we're working on the trip, just to get out of freaking Houston, Texas, where we live, get away from gyms, get away from, the normal day to day, and go explore somewhere. So, for instance, we went on a trip to Tulum, Mexico. We booked it last minute because we were kind of getting to that spot where we were feeling a little burnout. We were feeling a little bit bottled up with what we were doing, a little frustrated. So we got out, we worked on the trip majority of the time, but it was just nice to have, oh, let's go to a beach. Oh, cool. There's this cool restaurant.
Yeah. Change of scenery.
Has all this stuff. So for us, it's always being able to schedule fun activities and things that we can kind of, even if we are working, it puts us in a different environment, takes away the stress, and kind of allows us to relax a little bit more.
Yeah. And then on the day-to-day, we don't always get the privilege of being able to, step away from work in the middle of the day. In fact, for us, that might cause a little bit more anxiety than anything.
For sure.
But when a certain time hits, when we've sometimes maybe there's still some messages to get back to, maybe there's still a little bit of work that we could do. And we definitely find ourselves in that position where it's like, we were just talking about this, where it's like, I could post here. And we could, but we kind of have to set that cutoff time. And sometimes we have stepped over those boundaries where it's like, okay, one of us is still working, or, you're kind of like stepping over our own toes, but we need to really be a little bit stricter about like when we stop working. I typically will throw my phone on do not disturb, and then we watch a good show that we're into.
Yep.
Like a show is everything to us because it allows us to unwind. It allows us to shut our brains off from the very busy day and really like be present with each other.
And it just puts our mind on something else.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's like very hard to be very in flow with your work or whatever it is you're doing. If it's like from wake up until you go to bed, all you do, all you did, if you were in sales and like all you did was follow up with leads from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, Monday through Sunday, you go insane.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why it's important for us to kind of have those periods where we just turn off the brain. We're focusing on something else that doesn't require us to overanalyze it, doesn't require us to write reports on it, doesn't require us to X, Y, and Z on everything, but it just allows us to really relax.
Yeah. And so we also do that. We also take time away in the form of music festivals, like you said, trips. The day-to-day, we like to cook dinner usually together. We like to kind of like just converse and talk and kick it back a little. We'll watch a show. And then in the morning, we have a little bit of time to ourselves. So we might meditate. So we take that morning to do what maybe fills up our cup before we get into a busy day. And that's what allows us to feel really good and allows us to have that work-life balance. And there are times where, or maybe weeks where it's a little bit more work and a little bit less life. And then there's definitely times, especially around the holidays, where we're traveling a lot, where it's more life and less work. And so again, it kind of comes in seasons, but that's how we find our balance. It's more of like the macro scale, right? In the day-to-day, there is a little bit of balance, but a lot of times it's more of like ebbs and flows throughout the year. I think that makes us find that good, healthy balance. And in our relationship, we both love what we do. We have no problems, I think, finding balance within our relationship.
Yes.
We split finances, we split our day-to-day life, we split chores.
We do everything together. There's not one thing that you can think about that we don't either share together or do together.
Yeah, cooking,
she holds
dishes.
my hand when I poop. It's like this. There's everything you can imagine.
So yeah, that's kind of how we find balance in our personal and our work life too. And I think it all kind of goes back to like really tuning into yourself. I just thought about the mushroom guy when we went. We went and got these real quick.
Check in.
Yeah.
Take a second and just really.
I just thought about that when
how am I doing today?
So we went to Austin, real quick side note here. We went to Austin and I went to a speaking event, and there was, it was like this really cool psychedelic medicinal
it was dope
event. It was super cool. Dope. Biohacking. Anyway, so they had like these vendors, and this guy, I think it's High Vibes, but he was so cool. And he gave us like this little bag of mushrooms that you can add to your coffee and stuff, like functional mushrooms. And he told Mason, like, just make sure you check in with yourself when you take these mushrooms. So anyways, I thought about that when I just said, like, you got to check in with yourself, but truly you do, like, check in with yourself, discover what it is that you need. Like if you feel stagnant, do you feel stagnant because you're not working hard enough? Or do you feel stagnant because you need to kick it back and you need to take a little bit of a break to refresh yourself and to tune into what truly brings you joy, right? Maybe you need to go out for a night with friends, or maybe you need to stop going out with your friends and you need to actually focus in on your work. So it's really important that you discover what are your needs, what are your goals, what makes you feel fulfilled. And again, what does that balance look like for you? Because what it looks like for you is going to be very different from what it looks like from us.
Yes. So we hope that this podcast brought you guys some good insight into just balance, because I feel like it's very hard to navigate when you're just getting started with things, or maybe you are far along in your journey and you're wondering when the hell you're going to figure it out. So like we said, hopefully this gave you some value, some insight, gave you some ideas of what to expect as you're moving along. And as always, we appreciate you guys tuning into this podcast. If you enjoyed it, liked it, feel free to share it, post up to your stories, tag Audrey and myself. Our tags are down in the description of the podcast and in the comments on YouTube. And we will see you guys
in the next podcast.
in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Peace, y'all.